So I'll have you guys look at a quick video in a second, but I'm going to ask a question, okay? I'm going to give you like 5 seconds to think about the answer. I want you to think about someone that you look up as a great or inspirational leader, okay? Then give me the name, and in 10 words, tell me why, okay? Tell me why you think of this person as being an inspirational leader. All right, Donna, give me a name.
Deanna Williams.
Okay, why?
She has great ideas.
She has great ideas.
She can come up with 10 words. She has great ideas.
Okay.
Can you repeat the answer? I'm sorry. Repeat the answer.
She has great ideas. Okay. Dorothy Golston, give me a leader.
Martin Luther King.
Why?
He went without any fear.
He went without any fear. Okay. Would you follow him? Would you follow Martin Luther King?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Manette?
Austin William Richardson.
Okay. Why?
He was my father, and he nurtured his 3 daughters to becoming respectful young ladies.
Okay. Is it because he's a leader or because he's your father?
He was a leader.
He was a leader? Okay. All right. All right. Brother Alexander?
Reverend E.B. Umble.
Okay.
He was my first pastor when I baptized me. And he was a big inspiration of big leadership, a leader for our church.
Okay.
He had a lot of...
Let me change it somehow. Someone that you don't know personally. Someone that you don't personally know. I don't want to hear about fathers and cousins and bosses or anyone like this. Someone that you don't know. Okay?
Oprah Winfrey.
Okay.
Because she empowers those who work for her.
How does she do that?
She lets them, she has the vision, but she leaves it to them to implement here.
Okay.
The way they.
Gary Jones?
The CEO of Pfizer when I worked there. You know him personally, Bill Steer. He got the most out of people. And he made great decisions in a short period of time.
And how did he do that?
He would just, I believe, I didn't know him personally, so I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he would take the information, disseminate it,
Okay.
and come up with what he thought was the best direction for the company and the people.
Okay. Anyone else? Brother McWilliams?
John Kennedy,
John Kennedy?
President John Kennedy.
Okay.
He inspired the nation to go after his vision of wanting to land the man on the moon. And he was very, very empathetic to the plights of the people. In fact, he embraced civil rights early on.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Dr. Maya Angelou.
Okay.
I admired her not only for what she went through, but the fact that she let you know through her poetry and her books that anything is possible.
Okay. So are we listing accomplishments of the people, or are we listing something that you say, wow, that's a person? Because sometimes we mix up, well, I would follow that person because they were accomplished for something else other than being inspirational. Okay? So, go ahead.
Being black makes you look at, I look at Maya Angelou being a black woman in a rough situation. And we all have our days, I do. And I admire her for the fact that she overcame it. She overcame a lot of things.
What?
Empowering woman.
What?
I'd love to follow her footsteps.
Okay. Who followed her? You did?
A lot of people, no, I mean her.
Where was she going?
Well, she helped to enhance women, empower women
Okay.
in her own way. Not necessarily as a businesswoman, but as a human being.
I'm looking at leaders that took people somewhere. Okay? And we're gonna try to define what leadership is. All right? There are people that you say, wow, that person became the greatest such and such, right? But didn't lead people, right? So there's people that are accomplished, and you say, wow, this person's accomplished, but were they leaders? Okay? And with that, we're gonna kind of get into what is a leader. Right? And so it's really important. You've gone through this, but sometimes the trick is to kind of what is a leader? All right, what do you expect from a leader?
Stop.
You do have a nail in your head.
It's not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to
fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes, it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
Ow!
Come on, if you would just
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? We can work it out. We can work it out.
Okay. All right. Now, what do you think? What's going on here?
Neither one of them are listening to each other. They both were expressing their position as opposed to their needs.
I think she had a need to be heard, and he had a need to fix the problem.
Say that again.
She had a need to be heard.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted to solve the problem.
And he just cared about, and
I don't
so,
want to hear you. I just want to still solve the problem and move on.
To which point they both wanted their own individual needs to be met without kind of like talking about what's the issue and how can we together solve them.
Okay.
So they weren't communicating. They were talking French and German.
okay. Anyone else?
One thing about being a leader, you got to first be a good listener.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the only way you can lead is being a good listener.
Okay, so she's sitting there and she has this big nail sticking out of her head. And he goes, okay, she's talking about a headache, got this, my sweaters are getting snagged. Right. And he goes, well, take the nail out of your head. That'll fix the sweater situation, and the headaches may go away. So what this is about, and this is a video that's used in marriage counseling a lot. And so if you look at the video, what's his problem? His problem is he's approaching it from his point of view and from who he is. Right? And so he's looking at it going, you've got a nail in your head, get the nail out of your head, all your problems go away. And she's looking at it saying, hey, I'm dealing with other issues right now. These are more emotional. And so he's looking at it from his point of view because, when I saw this the first time, I started laughing because, that's me, right? When my wife says something, I go, just do this. What's the problem? And she goes, what are you, I'm talking about, I don't get it. Just do this and the problem goes away and then we're all okay. And that's what he was doing, right? So as you go to try to be a leader, sometimes, and if you notice what he did, he sort of sat there and it's killing him. But he went and said, that's really hard, right? And he couldn't stop looking at the nail, but he then adjusted to say, I need to understand who you are, okay? I need to be aware of what makes you tick. And I need to also be aware of myself. Right? That's what we more call emotional intelligence. You have to know who you are before you can lead anybody else. If you don't understand that you're a fixer, right? You're going to approach everything the same way to fix it. Some people may not want a fixer. They want something else. So when you realize that about yourself, right, it's not about let's disconnect or we're not connected. It's about fixing the problem. A friend of mine always says, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? Okay? Which one do you want? Sometimes it's not about being right. It's about being happy or having a peaceful time or something else. It's not about being correct. Right? And see, as a leader, that's what you have to sometimes adjust to say, who am I leading? How do I approach and can I adjust who I am to motivate other people? And so as we go through this, right, I like to look at the objectives, and the objectives are really important because you need to know what am I supposed to get out of the next couple of hours, right? And so one thing we want to do is we want to understand what's the importance of emotional intelligence, right? And we'll go into details about what that is in a couple of minutes, but as we go through it, think about this. What's emotional intelligence? What does it mean for me as a leader? Okay, where do I want to go? Right? And you also, what are the attributes of real inspirational leaders? We're not going to hit all of them because, like, as we're going to say, they're very, very different. Right? What is it about these people that get other people to follow them and to influence them? Right? And what's the difference or similarities between leadership and management? They're very different, but some aspects are very similar. And you need to figure out who I am right now. I am a manager or am I a leader? Those are very, very different. All right, and so we need to be clear as to what those are. And it's a part of the exercise I ask you to do is if you're going to do anything and accomplish anything in life, whether it's leadership or otherwise, you have to come up with some kind of personal leadership plan, or the PLP. Okay, what's my plan as a leader? How am I going to get there? How do I think about it? Okay, because again, you're leading someone to a goal. If you don't know what the goal is, what's the point? Okay? What's the point if you don't know what the goal is and how you're going to get there? And we're going to close out by doing that. But before we do anything, we need to understand what's leadership. Okay? What is leadership? What is leadership? Someone tell me what leadership is. Define it. And one of those 10-word things. Don't go and start, just give me, this is leadership.
Leadership is being willing to stand up and be the fearless person that is making the decisions to inspire a group of people to get to a goal. Okay. Anyone else? Leadership.
Leadership is being visionary, setting the vision for a group of people, inspiring the people to engender and support your vision and getting them to make that happen.
Okay, one more.
I just going to add to that, just getting the most out.
No, start from the beginning. Don't add to his. I forgot what he said.
Leadership is setting a vision, motivating people to pursue that vision, and in my opinion, getting the most out of each individual, understanding what each individual's attributes and traits are, and getting the most out of them.
Okay. All right. So define it. And so let's see what vision is not. Okay. Leadership has nothing to do with seniority, right? Because we like to say that I'm the oldest, so do what I say, right? It has nothing to do with any hierarchical position in an organization. Okay. All right. It has nothing to do with that. Don't talk about your title. Don't talk about how long you've been there. That does not make you a leader. Okay. Secondly, it has nothing to do, as we mentioned, with your title or what your title is. I'm the president. I'm the leader. No. The president we've had presidents in the U.S. or around the world that are awful leaders. Okay. But they are the president. All right. And so don't depend on some kind of personal attribute. The person that talks the loudest is not the leader. The biggest person is not the leader. Okay? The smartest person is not the leader. Right? It has nothing to do with those things. Those things could be a part of your leadership approach, but that does not make you the leader. Okay? Also, it isn't management. It isn't management. Because you're head of purchasing and you manage 50 people does not make you a leader. Okay, you could have got there because someone reached in the hat and pulled your name out and said, "This is our new manager." Okay, you don't, and sometimes you're not aware of that, so don't take that to mean that you're a leader. All right. So, what is leadership? What is leadership? As we kind of go ahead, let's kind of think about what some people that you've heard of have said. Okay, this is Bill Gates. He says, "We look ahead in the next century. Leaders will be those that empower others." Okay, those that empower others are leaders, right? And so Warren Bennis, and Warren Bennis is the guru of leadership. Okay, this is the guy that started this. When you're at work and they say, "Let's go to leadership training," all of it started with this guy, right? And Warren Bennis, his idea is just the capacity to translate some vision into a reality. Okay. Can you take your vision into a reality? Bennett said that's what makes you a leader, right? Peter Drucker, anyone know what Peter Drucker is? He was a management guru, right? This is how you should manage firms. He said the only definition of a leader is someone who has followers. Okay? If you have followers, then that makes you a leader. If people are following you around, trying to listen to you, that makes you a leader, right? And John Maxwell, who's John Maxwell? He's a what? He's a pastor, inspirational speaker. His leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, that's his definition of leadership. All somewhat similar, but a little bit different in some nuanced differences in what people think leadership is. All right? So as you go through and you have your definition of leadership, it fits very closely into what it is, then you need to develop, okay, what is leadership? What is a leader? Because if you don't know what that is and you call yourself a leader, then you're not going anywhere because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing anyway. Okay? And so now, again, so what we're going to deal with, let's all get to a point so we had the same foundation as to what we're going to talk, we're going to focus our leadership definition around. Okay? And so we're just going to say it's a process of social influence, right? You have to be able to influence. Notice we say social influence, not power, strength, or anything else. Social influence, right? Which maximizes the efforts of others, right? To achieve some goal. You have to inspire. Yes?
Where's that definition?
Okay, this definition comes from where it's come from just kind of bringing all the ones together to say, this is it, right? And remember, as you see with some of the definitions, they're all a little bit different because it means something a little bit different to everyone. What I'm trying to do here is that this is ours, right? So to make sure we're going from the same foundation. Right, as we kind of lead into what we're going to get to, right? And and as I mentioned, it stems from some kind of social influence, not from your authority or your position or some power that you have, right? Because you're the chair of the deacons ministry doesn't mean that you're the leader of the deacons. Okay? You can be the and have that position, but remember it's all social in nature, right? What if we were all beat up to say whatever the chairperson said, we just do it, right? Then we're just going to do it because we're afraid you might hit us, right? But that doesn't mean you're a leader, right? And it requires other people, right? Doesn't mean direct reports. You just need followers, all right? And other parts of it, and so it's not about some kind of personality trait. Okay? It's not about a personality trait per se. Personality traits may define your style, but it doesn't necessarily make you a leader. All right? And finally, right, you have to have a goal. You have to have a goal, right? If I'm the leader and I just keep walking around in circles, what's going to happen after a while?
You're going to lose your people.
You're going to what? People are going to say, I don't know where we're going. I know where I'm going. I'm going home. Okay, and I start walking around in circles, start getting dizzy, and then you start falling, and all your leaders get, they get some nausea, and they fall down, and they get sick. So it's not, you got to be going somewhere, right? Because they're inspired by you, by a vision, and where you're going. Okay, so now that we've sort of set what our definition is, let's go to this idea of some of the traditional traits of a leader. Right? And some of the traditional traits of a leader, right, is intelligence. What intelligence is, I don't mean you have the highest degree in the room or smart from an intellectual standpoint, but you need to sort of understand the situation you're in to be able to develop a vision so you can take people where they're going. It's not based on how much time you spent in a classroom, right? And sometimes with this intelligence is the ability to define what it is to the people that's going to follow you, right? My dad he didn't graduate from high school, but he was a really intuitive and smart person. He said, you tell him something, oh, that's just like this, right? He was always in an analogy that brought things down. You go, whoa, I never thought about it that way. Right, but when he got an understanding. So it's about intelligence that we talk about a lot. It's about toughness. You can't be a leader and be thin-skinned. You can't start crying every time somebody disagrees with you or says something about you. Then you're not tough enough to lead. Okay? Because at some point there's going to be some dissension. Right? So you can't be soft. You got to be tough. All right? And so, and by toughness I mean thin-skinned. You have to be determined and have energy because your energy is going to flow towards everything else. Okay? You have to have that energy and determination to motivate other people to follow you, right? And you have to have some direction. Strategic direction. Okay? So you got to say, well, we're going to go this way based on these strategies that I have, right? And finally, you have to have some vision. Okay? You have to see something that others probably don't see or see it the way you do, but you have to convince them that this is the way that we should go. Okay? And keep in mind, this is all about social influence. Okay? It's not about, I'm in charge, so you have to do what I say. Okay? That's not sort of how it works. Okay? That doesn't make you a leader. And I'll say something. I have an older brother, and he was standing there. So I was like, I mean, what are you doing? He said, well, you guys should listen to me. I'm the oldest. I mean, whoa. You know, that doesn't mean anything. You know, that doesn't make you the leader because you're the oldest, right? And it's sort of 6 boys there, and we kind of like to yell at each other, and at least you got to be able to talk louder than everyone else, which I win that war. And so, but if you talk about truly effective leaders, these that I named are foundations, right, of what to do it, how to do it. But people that are effective have high emotional intelligence. They have high emotional intelligence, right? This is really important. It goes back to the video we looked at, and this development of your emotional intelligence. You have to develop this, okay? Because if you don't have it, leading, especially a group, is going to be difficult or problematic for you. Okay, so what is emotional intelligence? Well, let's talk about it in the context of some of the components of EI, right? And we're going to list these, then we're going to go through it. You have to be self-aware. You have to know who you are. Okay, you have to know who you are, aware of what drives you, what irritates you, what type of person you are. This drives me crazy. You have to know that. If you don't understand it, then it could be problematic. You have to be self-regulated. Okay, you have to be self-regulated. If you don't get more than 5 hours of sleep, you know, I'm a bear when I get there. You know what you need to fix that. You need to get more than 5 hours of sleep. When you get less, you phone it in. Okay? Don't show up. Okay? You have to be self-regulating, right? You have to be motivated. Okay? You have to be able and be able to motivate others, right? You have to have empathy. And we're going to talk about empathy a bit, right? In 2 ways, right? We're going to talk about empathy, right? And you have to have social skill, right? And it's by social skill, we don't mean be willing to go around and talk to everyone. That's a part of it. But there's an objective in mind with the social skill. So we're going to go through each one of these in some detail, then I'll kind of throw it back at you. And again, and what we're doing now is leading up to the reading that you've had, right? Because for us take us to a higher order, a step beyond emotional intelligence. Okay, so I'll do most of the talking now. If we go on, then you're going to do most of the talking. Okay? And I'll just point at you and I want you to respond, right? So now we're going to need to lead up to it because these are things that I didn't want to overwhelm you too much with, you know, it was only 12 pages, but I could have given you another 30 pages. So we had a week, so I mean, that was a long time.
Family, job, the need to eat.
You know, well, to get it read in a week, right? Given the number of hours you had, that was about 1% of the time you had available, right? So you can always just sleep 15 minutes less per night, and you could have got it done. All right. So, emotional intelligence. That's how you do it. That's my empathy, right? And so the first thing we said was awareness, right? And that's knowing one's emotions, strengths, weaknesses, and drives, values, and goals, right? And their impact on others. Go back to the video. The guy realized halfway through the conversation that his self-awareness kicked in. He said, well, wait a minute. Oh, whoa. I'm a fixer. I want to get the nail out of her head and just go on to doing my other stuff, right? But this is how I am, and it doesn't connect with her. So he had some self-awareness. Okay, all right, okay. I know who I am, and it's killing me, but I have to try to get out of me, right, to go and deal with her issue right now. And so with self-awareness, right, it also comes with self-confidence because you know who you are. It's really important because you know who you are, and it gives you some confidence. It's like, I'm okay with who I am. Okay, this is who I am because I understand who I am. So it gives you some self-confidence to help you in leadership, right? And it allows you to a realistic self-assessment. You ever talk to people and they say, well, I can do this and I can do that. I was like, are we talking about the same person? Right? I'm really good at this, and I like to listen to people's opinion. And you tell them what you think and they just keep on talking about themselves. Right? So because they're not realistic. They don't have much self-awareness because they're not doing a realistic self-assessment. Okay? And it's important for you to know that. Because if you don't know that, then you can't deal with other people because you don't know who you are. Okay? Right? And a part of this is self-deprecating sense of humor. If you feel comfortable talking about yourself, then that's all about self-awareness. Okay, if you're irritated at talking about, it's like, no, I don't want to make fun of myself because it's going to make me look weak. Then you're not self-aware. Okay, because you lack self-confidence. Right? If you lack self-confidence, you don't like talking about yourself because you're afraid that you're going to make yourself look stupid or bad. Right? So it's all about your self-awareness and its impact your confidence. If you have confidence, you can talk about yourself in a negative way and you're unaffected by it. All right? Remember, if you have any questions, just ask. All right? And so you really look for constructive criticism as well. Gary?
Because back to the article, I think that's so true that when people see that you're human, they can relate to it, that you have a weakness. They relate to you very well and they're more likely to follow you because they understand that he is great at what he does. But he is human, he has a weakness, and they're more likely, I think, to empathize with you on a certain level and then follow you, give all of themselves to you.
Yeah, and you know that about yourself, right? You know exactly who you are, right? And the other one, right, is what we call self-regulation, right? And this is about controlling or redirecting your disruptive emotional impulses, right? And the propensity to suspend judgment, right? And you think before you act. What they call it in leadership or in this psychology world is pausing. Okay? And if you notice again in the video, he paused. Right? Pausing is about, if I walk up to Minette and you say, Minette, the stuff you're doing, that makes no sense what you're trying to accomplish. It just doesn't work. Right? Pausing, because if you react in less than a second, your emotions are reacting. Okay? Your emotions are reacting, and you're reacting to the fact that Rohan walked up to me too fast. And then I'm going to say, back up off me. Right? In some way, and I'm going to say, blah, 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 blah. Right? Then I'm stuck with what came out of my mouth. Okay? Because you can't bring it back. Okay? So this is all about pausing, because the more time you take between getting it and responding, the response is going from your emotions to your brain, right? Your brain is now responding, and response could be back up off me, but your brain is getting that response. Your brain has evaluated, okay, he came to me. Is it because he's really trying to be helpful and that's how he is? Is he just trying to hurt me? Does he miss the point? Then you can process that through your brain, and then you can respond in an appropriate way. Right? And if you notice, the husband paused. He was going, get the nail out of your head. Get the nail out of your head. Then he go, okay, that's really, really bad. Because he paused and realized, I'm aware of myself. I need to regulate my natural response and give the appropriate response. Okay? Yes, sir.
This is just a question. I would think that maybe in our first session when we were talking about self-awareness way back when we started, we did the test and everything.
Which is the test?
MBTI. Myers-Briggs.
Okay, Myers-Briggs?
Right.
Okay.
It talked about knowing who you are and everything. Then we talked about another attribute of a leader, and that was being bold. And we gave the example when Jesus saw that what the mockery they had made of the temple, he didn't stop. He just kicked them out. So I would think that this would be right in most of the times, but sometimes you had to be bold and just stand up for what's right. And even in a reading, there was this one guy who, in a reading, that told everybody that's wrong, you don't know what you're doing. So sometimes you just have to stand up and just say right now what you want to say.
No. but that doesn't mean the person didn't self-regulate and paused. Okay? It doesn't mean Jesus reacted out of emotion. It just meant that was the appropriate reaction. That was the effective reaction. He could have walked in and go, paused and go, you know something, the appropriate response for me is start flipping the tables over. Okay? That's what it is. It doesn't mean they didn't do this. It just means their brain is doing the appropriate reacting. Okay? The outcome is not really determined that, oh, you didn't self-regulate, right? It just means that the reaction came from the brain and not from the heart. Okay, that's what self-regulated is. And when you do the Myers-Briggs, it's all about the first issue and being exactly who you are. Once you know who you are, then you can move on from there. And that's what the things like Myers-Briggs is kind of good for, is it helps you to understand this is who I am. This is the type of person that I am. That's just one measure, because there are a lot of them. You can kind of measure on to know who you are. And the self-regulation it's a brain reaction, but it doesn't mean that the reaction is inappropriate if it's flipping the table over.
Okay.
Okay?
So you can actually look at the situation and make a determination that this is the right thing to do.
This is the right thing to do.
And to do it.
And sometimes the right reaction is an emotional reaction. Let them know that I'm really upset.
Yep.
Okay? Let them know that I'm really hurt. Let them know that. That's the appropriate reaction. Okay? And so because the reaction seems emotional doesn't mean they wasn't self-regulated. Okay?
And also, if you would have flipped tables over all the time, they wouldn't be shocked at that action. So that gave also some indication that he's really upset.
Yeah.
So it kind of set the standard or the mood, if you will. So like a head coach, if he's coaching a football team and he always flipping over tables, the player's going to be like, well, he always does that. But if this time he comes to the locker room and does that, wow, we really played bad. That might get them to think and then act better.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus always responded in kind, in a nice way to everything you came. You make whatever criticism. He said, "Oh, why don't you think do that?" But now my reaction is going to flip the table over. He said, "Whoa, is that the calm guy that's always walking around now flipping over tables? We must be doing something wrong. It must be offended by it, right?" And so they got out of there.
So, but you're saying Jesus paused and he said, "This is the right thing to do."
This is the right thing to do.
So it didn't impact the action that he did. It's just that he thought before he did it, and that's what Paul.
Yeah, but you don't know what the impulse action may have been. He may have said his impulse may have been, to do something else, but he paused and said, "Well, no, this is the appropriate reaction." Okay. All right, and it doesn't mean something physical or whatever else. Maybe his natural impulse was to say, "Don't worry about it, everybody." But something. If I do that, they're going to think I'm not serious. So maybe I need to do this. Okay, it's just that's what the pausing is, right? And
it's intentional.
Yeah.
It's not a
You're acting from the
brain.
From your immediate emotion.
Right? And so this really leads to trust. Right? It leads to trust within the followers of the group. Right? Because they know that they did something, and you know something? Gary didn't respond immediately. He took a second, and then he responded, because that's a signal to the person that you are thinking about the response before you responded, right? And I trust that response, and it wasn't just an emotional response, okay? It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but that's what it is. I yelled at Tracy, and then she responded. Okay, so I said, well, that signals to me that she thought about the response before she did it, right? And it has a lot to do, and it also is connected with integrity, right? Okay, because you're self-regulating. You're regulating yourself, knowing exactly who you are, right? And it also means that you're comfortable with ambiguity, because you don't know what's going to drive you to this response. It's going to be ambiguous, know what it is, but you think about it first, then you come up with a response. Okay, and also self-regulation means that you're also open to change, right? You're open to listen to what the person said and respond appropriately to what was given to you, and not an emotional response. So that means thinking about it means that you're open to change because you thought about what the person said or did. Okay. Now, motivation, and that's being driven to achieve for the sake of achieving. It's not about money or status. You just want to achieve. It's something that's driven from within, right? And so energy and persistence are attributes of this. And you like to work. You like new challenges. right? That's what leadership are. That's all about their motivation, right? And you just continue to improve. You get better and better and better and better and better. You have that energy, that drive to improve, right? You have a strong motivation for this, right? And you understand that you're going to face failure, okay? There's always a failure. Some people name Martin Luther King, he got arrested, right? This is all a part of what he wanted to do, right? Jesus got put out by his own, in Galilee where he grew up. In his old neighborhood, he got kicked out. Right? In some ways for him, it's like I failed. I can't convince my own people, right, to do exactly to save them, right? We say Jesus wept. Why did Jesus weep? He wept because his closest followers didn't understand who he was. Okay? That's why he wept. He was disappointed, right? It was but he flipped it around, right? And he raised Lazarus from the dead. I know what I can do. I'm self-aware, I know who I am. I can do this anyway. I'm disappointed right now, okay? But I can turn around and do this, right? Because when he wept right after that, he raised Lazarus from the dead, right? He reacted. In the face of failure, he turned things around, all right? And so empathy, right, is considering others' feelings. It's you can motivate people, right, if they feel as if you care about them. You have to care about them, right? And these are people is you can attract people and retain them. Because when you and I get in a conflict, right, and you think and you realize that I have some empathy for you, you know something, you say, wait a minute, he really cares, right? We just disagree on that issue. Okay? That's how you can retain people. Don't assume you're going to lead and everybody's going to agree with you every time. They're not gonna. They're gonna go, hey, wait a minute, why don't we go in that direction? Okay, you know something, I don't like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go do this thing you want me to do, right? You know something, my daughter was sick last night, or I had this thing happen, and you go, okay, you need to empathize with that. You can't not care, okay? So it's got to be, so it helps you to attract and retain talent, right? It allows you to develop other people. Okay, because again, they think you care. They listen to you. They bring a sense of closeness, right? And also, you're sensitive to cross-cultural differences. Let me say this. Don't think because you're in Zion, we're all Baptists, we're all black people, that we have no cultural differences. Absolutely we do. Okay? We grew up in different towns. We grew up in different families. We grew up in very different ways, right? My family's Jamaican. When I met my wife and they did something, I'm like, y'all people are weird. Okay? It was unusual for us, right? And so I kind of went and you kind of adjusted and you kind of said, oh, that's the way you guys are. And then but I think y'all like a little bit, I grew up around here. My parents are Jamaican and, her parents are from Alabama and Mississippi. They live in Ohio. And we were very, very different. And again, I thought things that they did were a bit unusual, but, so there are cultural differences from within, and be aware of that. And be sensitive towards that, right? And sometimes that happens, especially within groups that everyone thinks they're okay, right? And social skill. You got to be willing to being able to talk to people outside of your group. Right? If you're in one ministry, you talk to others in other ministry because you might need them to get together to achieve a higher vision that you have, right? And so that's where social skill comes up, right? And also that allows you to lead change because remember, your ministry is defined to do one thing. A ministry is defined to do something else. You have a vision for a higher accomplishment. You get the other ministry because you can think out of the box. Okay, that's where social skill comes in. You have to be willing to talk to other people that may be unrelated to what you're doing. You got to be, and this is also part of being persuasive. I have no power over you, but I have to be able to persuade you to do something that I think is the right thing to do, and you may not agree. Okay, that's where social skill, and I can't get upset with you because I can't force you to do it. I have to be convincing. I have to be persuasive. Okay. And also meet a lot of people, right? It develops your network. Ideas are generated and visions are generated through your networks, right? And so this also leads to your ability to build and grow teams. You have to have social skill to be able to do that. different cultures, different groups, different beliefs, different foundations. You have to be able to bring that together to sort of build and lead teams. Okay, now let's get to the question that you read. All right? So let me ask this question. And I'm trying to think of who to ask this question to. Donna.
What?
Why would anyone want to be led by you? Why should anyone be wanting to follow you?
I'm a good strategist.
Good strategist, okay? Dorothy, why? Why should anyone want to be led by you? What's it about you?
Because I have integrity, compassion, I have the love for people.
Okay? All right, Minette, why should I follow you? Why should I want to be led by you?
Because I'm a trustworthy person.
Because you're trustworthy. Okay?
Care about people.
You care about people. So you could be my accountant because I trust you that you won't kind of
Give me what I do, yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's what your reading was about. Why should anyone be led by you? Okay? Why should anyone be led by you? That's what we're going to get to. Right? Why should anyone be led by you? You're a leader, you have to ask yourself that question. Right? And as it mentioned in the article here, when you ask executives that, someone goes, because I'm the boss. You know, that's not a good reason. Right? And so as you read through this, right, as you think about how do you attract followers? That's the reverse of that. How do you attract followers? Right? And you're going to revealing weaknesses, right? And we're going to be ready to go through it. Become a sensor, right? And he also said practice tough empathy, right? And dare to be different. Okay? What's the benefit of revealing your weakness? Why should you reveal weakness?
It keeps you humble.
It keeps you humble? Okay. How does that impact your leadership?
Because then people feel like they can relate to you more.
People think that they can relate to you more? Why is that? They have weaknesses too?
People need to know that we all are human and we're not going to be perfect.
Okay. You don't want to follow perfect people?
You're not going to find a perfect people.
Okay. So why was Jesus perfect?
Yes.
The people followed him?
He's the only one.
Huh?
He's the only one.
Okay. Jesus is the only perfect person.
We are definitely not perfect.
Okay. Perfect in what way? What perfection are you talking about? You're talking about sin. Right? What about other things? I mean, what if sin is not it? We're not, is something wrong with being perfect? Is something wrong with being perfect?
I think it intimidates people.
Huh?
I think it intimidates people.
Okay. If you're perfect, or you think you're perfect, right? It intimidates people.
I think you typically have an air about you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's not based in reality.
It's not based in reality?
That's right.
Okay.
And most of the time when you think you got it all going on, you don't even want to hear the other person because you know you got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
And that's dangerous.
All right.
People will not want to come to you because well, he's perfect. He knows everything. So why you bring my idea up?
Why bring your idea up?
Yeah.
Right? Because then you don't
approach him. He thinks he knows it all. He's perfect.
Okay. And so, but in revealing your weakness, what does that, can't that be hurtful? In the sense that, you know, I'm the head of finance, but you know something, I got a D when I took the class, right? And what does that do?
You don't reveal that type of weakness.
You got to be careful, right? You got to be careful, right? You got to be careful.
Everything isn't for everybody.
Yeah, you got to be sort of careful, right? You know, so you sort of see revealing weakness is a good thing, but you have to be careful. You have to be careful on revealing your weakness. What's a sensor? It says become a sensor. What's a sensor?
Being able to sense the tone of the crowd or the room, sensing where the opinions lie. So if you're trying to get everyone you're trying to persuade them to think like you're thinking, you have to sense the tone of the room.
Why is that useful?
Because it makes you in touch with reality and the tone. If you're not a sensor, you're going to think that everyone is in line with your opinion all the time and be shocked when there's a coup maybe and everyone overturns you because no one was ever on board with what you were doing because you didn't sense the tone of the people you were leading.
Okay, Donna?
In reading that, I didn't really grasp that, and so it seems like it was based on subjectivity. So what I may misread the situation. So, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And then are we sensing people? Are we sensing situations? I just didn't grasp that, the whole sensing thing. So. Okay.
Back to the Myers-Briggs exercise, we talked about that you can be, based on your personality type, just going full steam, and that there are people in the group that's not with you. And so you need to be able to stop and sense that you don't have everybody with you. Or if you're not able to do that, then you need to have somebody in your team that will stop you to bring everybody with you. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that the whole group is against you. It can mean that a select few is in there. You need to be able to sense that so that you can bring the whole group with you. If you're not able to do that, then you need to have somebody who's on your side, who's got your back, who can be your sensor. Okay. We all aren't wired that way.
But, and if you don't think you're wired that way, that still needs to be a skill that you develop. And the skill that you develop is this. If I'm in this room and I'm saying something, and I say, guys, or let's go do this, right? Something, and I always say this, and this is really important even at church meetings and things like this. Some pieces of the most important piece of information is sometimes what's not said. It's body language. It's the question that's asked. You don't know how many times I've sat down at meetings here and in other places, and I'm listening to questions, and the person leading it misses the point. And they think they walk away, and I'll get, it's not happening. And I know the instances, a couple of instances in my mind here. And they walk away, oh, that went well. No, it didn't. Yeah, but we only got a couple, and they were really good questions. You don't really, because sometimes you got to look at body language. Sometimes you look at the question being asked, well, isn't it better if we did that? And then you go, no, we should do this because, and then you move on. No, that's not the message you should be getting. Right? And sometimes as a leader, if you're not a good sensor, if you don't know how to feel the room and the emotion that's going around there, you miss the message. You miss what they're trying to say. You miss. Sometimes I stand up to teach and I'm in the class and I'm going and everyone's sort of looking at me and I'm going, you kind of look around and you know something? They didn't understand anything I've said for the past 20 or 30 minutes. You just look around and you go, do you understand? Yeah. And you go, no, you didn't. Because you kind of sense that it's just not working, right? And sometimes as a leader, and as a lot of leaders miss that. And again, I've seen it over and over and over again. I'll sit there and go, it's not going the way you think it is. Donna?
So Sunday, when we had the guest preacher, and Pastor Bird then followed, I don't know if you were here, followed him up and said, okay, I know why this tree is here, yada, yada. Or could that be understood as sensing?
Okay, if I go to the guest speaker himself, and it's maybe tough for him because he wasn't used to the congregation. He's looking around and going, all right, this is not working. And preaching is a little bit different in that sometimes preachers ask for an amen, right? And people respond because you ask for it. Okay? Because it's naturally how we're trained. And sometimes that, not just here, but otherwise, the preachers, whatever it is, could be Pastor Bird or whatever, it's preachers, and you're looking around and it said, ask for an amen, or, only 6 people, whatever, and I go, this is not working. But you respond because I'm trained to respond in a certain way. And so after a while, you kind of get used to it. And what is now on Sunday, Pastor Bird clearly sensed something that he didn't sense. He's like, dude, this is not working for you.
Right.
Yeah, because I was in the counting room,
Mm-hmm.
and on the way home, Angelique said something that he said something that was wrong, and she said that she sat up on her pew, and she and Pastor Bird had eye-to-eye contact, and she was like saying, she said, Pastor Bird, are you going to clear this up? It was something that he said that must have been incorrect.
Yeah, he was, but in terms of being a censor, it's about sensing, then this is not, because again, in church, no one's going to say anything and raise their hand and say, whoa, you meant that, you can't say that. No one's going to do that, right? They're just going to sit there and kind of start looking around, and he may have been caught up to the point that he's, let's say, preaching to himself, right? And not look around and say, this is, I need to do something else here. And that's the type of sensing, right? It's sensing what is going on. And as a leader, you need to be, especially when you have your group, you need to know something is not right with what I did or what's saying or where we're going. And that's really important. And another one is, we talked about empathy before. Right? Now, what's the difference between that? What's empathy? And we add tough empathy. What did you take from tough empathy? What does that mean?
Being able to offer constructive criticism without hurting feelings, I guess.
Okay. Anyone else? Is this just constructive criticism? Okay. What's that? Just constructive criticism?
I think you have to be empathetic with, if you're leading people, you have to be empathetic with, their situations, who they are, what they're going through. But if we have a vision, a goal that we're pursuing, we still have to motivate those people to work toward that.
You have to get there. Right. One of the things you're focused on, you have a vision, you're going for a goal. Right. Someone comes in, they're whining about something that happened at home. You're going, that's not, I'm sorry to hear about that's good, that's too bad, blah, blah, blah. But we got somewhere to go. We'll work with you or whatever, but we've got to go here, right? This empathy thing can go too far, Absolutely. Right? What we're going to talk about in a second, right? And the other thing is sort of dare to be different. Right? Why is it important? What do I mean by dare to be different?
You got to set yourself different. You got to set yourself apart from them. You can't let them get too close, because if you let them get too close to you, then you can't lead them.
Why?
Because it's their perception of you.
Okay. Right?
There are times when you have to speak out, even though you may not get any, like you say, amen. Mm-hmm. But if this is what you truly believe in, you have to speak out.
Okay, but
what you think.
And what did it say you should do about your difference? When you say dare to be different, you have to embrace your difference, right? And sometimes it's good to create a distance between you and the people you're leading. Right? And sometimes you have to have people have those understand that, well, there's something unique about me. There's something unique about you. Right? But the thing that's unique about you could be what's attractive about you to them. And you can live with it. If you walk in there and you have an arm missing, right? I'm different. And you need to embrace it like I have an arm missing. Oh, by the way, I got caught in the door and it came off. But that's what it is. And they say, whoa. And it also could build the fact that, this guy only has one arm and he continues to go ahead anyway. That could be something that motivates them to follow you. Okay? So let's just kind of walk through these here. He said, revealing your weakness, right? It makes you much more approachable. Right? And if you're perfect, then, as Brother McWilliams pointed out, then people will look at you and say, well, you don't need any help then. Right? Because you're perfect. What do you need me for? Right? And so it also builds solidarity. I think someone mentioned the fact that, okay, you have shortcomings as well. Okay? You have weaknesses. So that makes you human. Right? So just like I'm human makes you also human, right? And say, and own up to selective weaknesses, right? Don't own up to weaknesses that are a fatal flaw. Okay? If you're going to lead doing something, and if you sound like I've never done it before, whoa, that's a fatal flaw. Why am I following you? Okay? if you're going to go, let's start a new church. By the way, I never read the Bible. Then that's problematic, right? Because they're not going to follow you. All right. So it's good to show weaknesses, but the weaknesses that you show are weaknesses that are tangential to the thing that you want to accomplish. Right? I have some weaknesses, and it's good if you say, something, this is a weakness of mine. I'm a bit of a workaholic. I like working about 20 hours a day. I only sleep 3 hours a night, and that's my weakness. Okay? And people look at that and say, whoa, the guy works like crazy, so I need to work harder as well. So you use that weakness to motivate them to do something else. Right? And so you reveal weaknesses, but be very careful, because you don't want to reveal fatal flaws or things that may doubt your ability to lead. Okay? You want to be human, but you don't want to be in a position that they won't respect you, right? And as I just mentioned, some weaknesses in a way can be a strength. I work too hard. Okay? I have maybe a lot of attention to detail. Right? People hear that and go, something, I can't give him sloppy work, because he hates that. Even though he calls it a weakness, it's something that's going to drive the people, your followers, to do exactly what you want them to do. Okay? And so if we look at being a censor, right, it's the ability to interpret soft data. Okay? Expressions on the face, the way they have in the sitting seats, the way they respond to questions, the way they treat everyone else. You have to be able to interpret that. Take your time and interpret soft data, right? And so you can detect what's going on without someone telling you what's going on. They're not feeling me right now, right? Something, and that could be in their performance as well. They could say something and you can look at them and say, now, did you really sell 100 of those? Did you really deliver 25 dinners like you were supposed to? Because you know that person, okay, Gary?
I was going to also say that that's so important. What's so important in that, being a censor, is you really have to know your people. So on some level, you have to fellowship with them, because you can't be a censor for somebody if you don't know who they are, or what motivates them, or whatever. So you have to have some idea of the people that you're leading, some of their attributes, so who they are.
Right. Know who they are, right. But as we're going to talk about, be careful about that as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes you have to be careful, because as a leader, you don't get too close and bring yourself down too low.
Right.
Okay? You can't bring yourself down too low into where they are, because what happens is they start looking at you a little bit differently than being the leader or following who you are. Right? So if you're a leader, for instance, and you're leading the group or organization, and they go and they have a party, and you go and you start drinking too much, and you're hanging around with them, and you start just doing too much, they say, whoa, wait a minute. I thought this guy was a visionary and wanted to do things. He's just like the rest of us. I thought he was stupid. Now he'd been at the party for about 4 hours like the rest of us. We hanging out, and so is he. I thought he should be out pontificating something or creating something new, right? And so you have to be careful, right? And one thing about being a censor, you don't overinterpret things, right? A lot of these can go too far. You can start reading too much into it, and it's like, no. You got to understand this is not that much, right? And because that they may end up losing confidence. And what you can do is validate your perception through someone else. Right, through the people that's there, you can Don. I noticed people had a little concern when I say let's start tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. Did anyone say anything to you about that? And you come and say, something, 3 a.m. is the problem, because you told them to work till midnight, and you said 3 a.m. and some of them live in Frederick, So and then you can go, oh, okay, I didn't get that. Right? So you can overdo it, but if you can, have someone there to say, hey, did I read this right, before you start responding. All right? Yes, sir.
Okay, again, back to personality traits. It says that sometimes isn't a trait of everybody, where they can sense because they just want to just go full spin ahead. So I think I heard you say we have to develop that if we don't have it, but in the interim, I think what I'm hearing you also say is you need to have a floor leader or somebody there that you can bounce at.
This-
Make certain that you're leading.
This complements that skill. Remember, talk about emotional intelligence and being self-aware of who you are. You need to be aware that I'm a go-getter. I'm the type of person that I just see it and I start rolling. Okay, and that's being self-aware. Right? That's what the Myers-Briggs is trying to say. Is like, hey, be aware of who you are. That's who you are. You like to see the goal and start smoking till you get there 90 miles an hour. So if you know that's who you are, that self-awareness says, you know something? That's how I am. Donna, slow down. Slow down and try to sense what's going on, right? And try to work on this desire to just keep driving. Slow down, look and say, hey, is everything okay? Then you say, Donna, I was, this is what I saw. Is this right? And you say, yeah, the 3 a.m. thing is a problem, right? And you say, oh, I didn't notice that because I'm too busy. We get there 3 a.m., we work for about 8 hours, take a break and we do some more work. That's all I saw. That's being self-aware. And that's what you did before is allowing you to see who you are. And when you know who you are, you have to be cognizant to regulate who you are so you can achieve the goal.
Because that's who I am doesn't mean that I shouldn't work. I'm just saying hypothetical.
Right.
Because a person could be a charger doesn't relieve him of the responsibility of developing that.
Absolutely. But you have to know that's who you are. Know that you're a charger. And so because you know that, and you did the Myers-Briggs to develop, that's who I am, control that. Because chargers can't lead certain types of groups. Okay? And know that you're a charger because you're self-aware, because that's just building self-awareness. That's what we call it, emotional intelligence. You know who you are now, right? And so a part of the thing you miss out in this charger is that you miss out on your sensory skills. So work on your sensory skills by always telling yourself, slow down, slow down, slow down. Watch what they're saying. Slow down. And you got to keep doing that. That means you have to think about it more. If that's naturally who you are, then you need to work on another skill, right? Because not a lot of people have all of these, right? Make sense? Okay. So now, tough empathy, right? When you're inspirational, right, you don't necessarily give people what they want, but what they need to accomplish the goal. There's a whole lot of talk about being empathy and caring about the people you work with. Don't go too far. You don't want to be, wishy-washy and kind of soft and everybody you walk in, you give them a hug and all that kind of stuff. Then you never accomplish the goal, right? Then you just get a big sofa and have everybody sit there and you go ahead and deal with their issues, but you never accomplish anything. All right. You go to all these leadership things and they walk about, and next thing you know, your boss walks in there and start hugging everybody, and nobody does any work because he's running around rubbing people on their head and want to know how they feel and how's the family, right? So we don't want to go too far with this empathy. You got to be tough about it and do what's best to accomplish the goal. Okay, but you need to empathize, and so this team building stuff can be overdone. Okay. Not that it's not important, but it can be overdone. So inspirational leaders, right, they manage through this tough empathy, which is that balances the respect for the individual and the respect for the task. Okay? You have to balance that. Right? You have to balance that because you can respect somebody and care about their situation and deal with their situation, but don't forget about where we're going. Okay? So you have to balance that. You have to balance that, right? And so again, have empathy, but let's call it tough empathy, all right? Because you have the vision and the goal, and successful leaders are able to balance that, right? And what it does, right? It's used by leaders that really care about something, right? And these are leaders that are more likely to show their true selves. It makes you authentic. Right, because when you do too much empathy, you go you just want to sit down and talk to everyone and make sure everyone's okay, but you kind of miss out on, okay, where are you going? What's your goal? If you're authentic, you say, what I want you to do is I want this ministry to go out and disciple on Saturdays and bring 100 new members into the church from this neighborhood. That's what I want us to do. Right? I don't want to sit around and talk about, something, your kids are misbehaving and everything else. I'm sorry that your kids are misbehaving. Let's work with you to get them some help. But now let's go on down there and start talking to some people. Okay? You're being authentic. You're saying, hey, my goal here is to achieve this. Okay? And I want you to work with me. Okay? I'll help you with your problems, but we have to achieve the goal. You're just being authentic, and people respect you for that. All right? Questions? Everybody anyone a little bit uncomfortable with that concept? No one is? Okay, good.
I just want to make a comment. Say you're the follower, and you have a suggestion that maybe your leader might be receptive to if you just open up to it. Instead of focusing on what the leader wants to do, we need to focus on maybe there's another, or not so much an alternative, but we can work together. Even though we think different.
Okay. Is it a compromise?
No, I'm saying, I'm using the word compromise, but no, bring two ideas together that may get a positive action or make.
Now, see, the leader sets a vision. We're going towards this goal. We're accomplished. Typically, leaders are less concerned about details, right? So the follower comes in and says, hey, you know something? For us to get there, I'm fired up to do what you want us to do. And my idea is we can get there by doing this way, right? And then the leader said, okay, let's go with that way, because leaders are typically don't focus on details. That's what we're going to talk about with management. Dealers aren't focused that much on the details. They set the vision and they motivate, they influence the people. Let's just go. Okay? Then those that are within that organizational group, or the followers, if you will, they're managers within the followers to help to get there. So good leaders will say, okay, Tracy, how do we get there? Good idea. This is what we're going to do. Everyone do what Tracy just said. Okay, I don't know what she said, but she said something good, right? And then everyone just kind of flows in and does it, right? That's what leaders do, right? They're inspirational. They typically are not great at specific details, right? Though some leaders will try to get into the details, and so this can be problematic. Okay, that can be problematic. So you have to be careful of that, right? And so the last thing here is dare to be different, right? And so what they do is capitalize on what's unique about themselves. The guy walked in with one arm. He capitalized on that uniqueness, right? By saying, wow, if the one-arm guy can do it, then so can I. Okay, you capitalize on that weakness and who it is, right? And it can be used to keep your social distance, because keeping your social distance is important. Because as we mentioned, you don't want the followers to bring you down, to be like, not that you're better than them, but your uniqueness in leading, you don't want to get rid of that, right? Your difference keeps that distance. Okay, that's what that's why they're following you, because they recognize something about you that's not in them, and you motivated them to that. Okay, then if your difference, right, is too great, then that's a problem. If it's too close, it's a problem. So you need to use it in a way to motivate the people. There's a right place to use your difference. Okay, whatever that difference is. Now, and say they use their separateness to motivate the others to perform better, right? As we just mentioned. But remember, though, a caution here is you can create too much distance. And if you create too much distance, your followers may disengage. That person is just not like us at all. Okay? This is the tough balance. This is a very tough balance. This is one of the hardest ones to achieve. It's very tough. I'm not like you. I'm different, but I'm enough like you so we have common beliefs. But I'm not just down there where you are, where you can just diminish me to not want to follow me. Okay? Of the four, this is the one that's most difficult. It's the toughest one for us to achieve, because some people's instincts are to get rid of their differences. Okay? Then why should I follow you? Why should I be led by you if you're just like me? That's like following me. Okay? That's like following yourself, right? So when you get asked the question and you sort of walk through, why should anyone be led by you, right? You have to show your difference, right? You have to expose your weakness, okay? You have to be able to motivate them and you have to have this tough empathy. Right? That's why someone would want to be led by you. You know, you hear all these things with personality traits. Those are nice and helpful, but you need to create this environment in which they want to be led by you. I want to be led by someone that has something unique that I don't have. I want them to be human, right? They're not perfect. They need to be able to motivate me to do stuff. I want them to care about me, but if they do too much, then I don't want to follow them because we're going to sit around and chat all the time. Okay? That's how you want to think about it. That's why someone wants to follow you. Okay? That's why. Not because you're smarter than everybody else. Not because you're bigger than everybody else. No, not because somebody gave you a title. That's no reason for them to follow you. Okay? So you have to continue to ask yourself this question. All right? Now, we're going to keep going. I was going to give you guys a break, but I decided you can walk back and forth and eat, so we're just going to keep on going. Right? And so now we're gonna look at leader or manager. What's the difference between leadership and management? Okay, what's the difference between leadership and management? And then don't look ahead at the slides either. That's like cheating. That's like that's like watching the basketball game the next day and trying to predict who won.
Management is basically organizing and planning tasks, activities. It's task-oriented.
Okay, what's leadership?
Leadership is more of a influencing people.
Okay.
To do, influencing people and really getting them on board with your vision or your ideas.
Okay.
I mean, you want them to adopt it or own your ideas.
Okay.
If you look at it from the dimension of the scope of your work, leaders are way out in front. They're 5 years of visionary. Managers are day-to-day getting it done right today. So their scope of what they're looking at and trying to influence or control are totally different.
Okay, they got a much shorter scope. All right. Management, leadership.
Leaders look at the big picture. Managers kind of manage the details.
Okay. All right. All right. Tracy?
Ditto.
Ditto? Ditto on what?
That leaders set the vision, and I think make it clear, and then enlisted their managers to help implement.
Okay. Charlene? Managers and leaders, what's the difference?
For the leader is getting the task done and motivating the people to get the task done. The manager is the one that hopefully has the vision and strategy about how it's done, but he's expecting others to get it done.
That's the manager expecting others to get it done. Okay, Donna?
I think a leader has a goal and a manager has a way of getting to that goal.
Okay, all right. Dorothy?
Leaders follow the vision and motivate.
They follow the vision? Leaders follow the vision?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure you said what you meant to say.
Leaders set the vision.
Okay.
And it's a goal that the leader wants to follow, and hopefully they can get the others to follow.
Okay.
And management is the one that really go to the job and get it done, make it happen.
Okay, all right. So, let's talk. What's the difference? You guys have some ideas of what the differences are, right? And if we look at sort of definition here, leadership is the process. So we talk about social experiences, maximize the efforts of others towards achieving a goal, right? Management, on the other hand, is directing and controlling a group of people or entity for the purpose of coordinating, harmonizing the group towards accomplishing a goal. Okay, you kind of get people together. Okay, Tracy, you go do that, and then Minette, you go do that. Okay, you go over there and do that. You go over there and do that, and then we try to. Okay, now tell me. And managers could add or take away value, right? Because managers, okay, go ahead and do it. Depends on what type of manager you are. You could, okay, Donna, every hour you come back to me and tell me how many things you've done. Tracy, you come back every 15 minutes and tell me what you. And at the end of the day, you tell me what you did. You know, that's cost and value, right? Because the time it's going to take you to put together the report to me, it's taking away from time for you actually doing stuff. Right? The reporting process doesn't create any value, right? It's just a way of measuring, right?
Can I say something about that too? I think a leader will also delegate whatever they need to have done. They delegate. You have to know your group, I guess I would say spiritual gift and their talent. So you have to know all of this in order to delegate
the work and making sure that it get done.
Okay, and leadership though, so a leader said, we're going here. Everyone motivated, we're going to get on board. We're just going to go. Manager said, okay, for us to get there, you need to do that, you need to do that, you need to do that. And you mentioned something about spiritual gifts. Spiritual gifts, right, is just a Christian measure of the Myers-Briggs, right? It's just who you are within the body and who you are as spiritually. Right? And so people shouldn't look at, these are my spiritual gifts, so that means I'm on lead. No. You still need to have these skills. Right? And this is just, again, it's a tool for self-awareness. All these things are tools for self-awareness. It's really important. And it tells you who you are right now, okay? And which can be driven by other factors. But leadership is all about where you're going. Identifying who you are, these build self-awareness, okay? And some of your, as you go through your spiritual gifts inventory and you combine that with the Myers-Briggs, you say, okay, this is who I am. This helps me to be aware of who I am, okay? I'm one of those hard-driving people. I'm going 90 miles an hour and I understand who I am. I'm a fixer, right? I'm a problem solver. Right? Okay, identify who I am. You're aware. You go on from there to develop the other skills to make you a leader.
In my experience in the business world, we have what you call team playing, but rather than individual input. Where does team playing apply to this, the managers? I mean, like everybody has a specific job to do, but yet it needs to be done collectively, not individually, in a sense.
Okay, and managers coordinate the task.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be an individual. It would be a group. I'll say this group do this.
But they're leaders within groups.
Yeah.
They're natural leaders, which is not necessarily the manager.
Right, it would have to be.
Okay, there's a natural leader within groups, not necessarily the manager. Okay, those can be two different people, which can be problematic.
But you hear team playing, the word team playing a lot in business.
Honestly, some of these words are words that are in vogue that people just use. Let's team build. What does that mean? What's team building?
Well, I think team building is finding a way to coordinate tasks so that we all ensure we're on the same page, moving in the same direction.
Exactly, but that's just the hot word, right? So be careful of the words, right? Team building is like, and sometimes, if you think about the military, sometimes it gets you to do stuff. I yell at you and scream at you and scare you into doing it, but that's the best way to get it done. Right? And that's sometimes very much of a management skill, is just saying, hey, you know something, to save your life when you go into battle, I got to scare the living daylights out of you. Okay? So it's very, very important for you to know when the difference between an AK-47 and an M16, the way it sounds. Right? And that's why I shoot AK-47 above your head in basic training, so you know when you hear that sound, you better duck. Okay? Because that sound is a sound that's trying to kill you. But that's, and you got to coordinate with the other soldiers. That's team building. Okay? But they don't call it team building in the military because that sounds kind of soft. Okay? They call it, I'm saving your life. Okay? And so and so Peter Drucker, our management guru, he has a pretty succinct difference between the two. He said leadership is doing the right things, management is doing things right. Okay? Leadership